All right, hello all. We're doing a webinar on the Connecticut Learning Standards for the arts today. You can pose questions in the chat box of the website, and we will get to them at the end of the presentation. So feel free to send them anytime. I'll make note of them, and then we'll get to them at the end. I'm your host, Jennifer Bechand, and then our presenter today is Jackie Coleman. She's the Education Consultant for the Arts at the State Department. Today we'll be focusing on the review process that led to recommendations for the new Connecticut Art Standards. So I'll pass it off to Jackie now so you can go more in depth on that.
Great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Welcome, everyone. This is a session that many people across the state have already heard and have provided us feedback on, but we're specifically inviting parents, community members, and families today, so you may see some questions that are relevant to your group. Anyway, so we're going to get started. I'm just trying to move forward my slide here. Bear with me for a moment, please. Not sure why I'm having technical difficulties. Well, we'll figure this out. So here I am. Jackie Coleman, Education Consultant for the Arts, State Department of Education. Like Jennifer had mentioned, we are going to go through today the review process that has been underway for about 14 months now across the state with teachers and arts educators and higher education folks. And we are looking forward to getting your input on where we are in the process and what's next. So to start and end our presentation today, we want to share some video clips of Connecticut students demonstrating mastery in their art form. Both of the videos, the one at the beginning and the one at the end, are from the 2015 Commissioner of Education's Welcome Back meeting for superintendents. This first video you're about to see is a young man in his senior year who has been studying dance in school since 4th grade. He choreographed this piece especially for this meeting, knowing it was superintendents, because he wanted to communicate his personal journey of what it's like to be a 2015 high school student. And we're really showing it to you because we have 554,000 very important reasons to have a strong arts curriculum and strong art standards to guide our curriculum. And that means we have 554,000 students in the state of Connecticut. So bear with me a moment, and I am going to pull this video up, if it lets me. Oh, now it's doing the other thing. There we go. Okay. There we go. I was using the wrong click. Here we are. Wonderful. Thank you for taking a few minutes to watch that with us today. So we're going to keep going. There we go. Okay. So what got us in motion to talk about the art standards here in the state of Connecticut is that the National Coalition for Core Art Standards released a new set of national art standards in June of 2014. The standards were created by a coalition of 10 arts associations led by state arts curriculum directors. And nationally, there were over 130 writers followed by 6,000 plus reviewers that looked at the drafts and provided feedback. What's really great is that Connecticut had both writers and reviewers involved in this process. Today, we in Connecticut have the opportunity to look at these national standards and decide how they might be helpful to Connecticut students and teachers. The National Coalition for Core Art Standards developed their framework with the end goal of creating what you see before you here, artistically literate citizens. The National Art Standards are built around evidence, not just evidence of student learning, which we know students, you could just see what that young man learned in the dance he did and how he was expressing and sharing his thinking, but there's also research-based discoveries that helped the writers and reviewers determine best practice methods for the presentation of our art standards as well as their content. I am definitely having trouble moving slides forward today. There we go. So when considering the adoption of new standards, our Connecticut State Board of Education asks for a thorough stakeholder engagement process before bringing recommendations to the State Board. So today we're sharing our process, what we uncovered, what we think is best for Connecticut, and then we want to end by giving you the opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback. All of this is still in draft form and has not formally gone before the Board of Education for a vote. We began the Connecticut Art Standards adoption process by crosswalking the 1998 Arts Curriculum Framework, which is what you're seeing in front of you, to the new National Core Art Standards, which I'm now going to call NCAS because it's easier to say. And this slide is an image that really represents the first page of the document that our arts teachers here in Connecticut use. And it's thin, it's like a PDF document that you can print out. And it's contrasted with our new national art standards. And the national art standards live in an online platform. And you can see that here. This is a snapshot of the first page when you go to the national art standards. I'm actually going to open it real quick just to give you an idea of what this looks like. If you were to print this out, there are over 850 pages. So this was not intended to be something that you used all at once. I want to point out here that what you're seeing, the words creating, performing, presenting, producing, responding, and connecting are called artistic processes. And all 5 of our arts discipline teams, and I say 5 because not only do we have dance, music, theater, and visual arts, but they've now added media arts, all 5 of them agree that in all of those art forms there are processes of creating, either performing, presenting, producing, responding, or connecting. And then the national teams wrote these 11 anchor standards that you're seeing up here on the screen, like Anchor Standard 1, generate and conceptualize artistic ideas and work. The idea is that standard could be used for dance. You could generate and conceptualize artistic ideas and work in dance. But you could also do that in a painting or in a photograph or with a piece of music. And then you go down to what it might look like on the ground, which over here there's a Customize Your Handbook. And let's do visual arts. And let's say we want to know what creating does look like. And we want to know pre-K2 and 3-5. And there's some other options for teachers here and resources as well, but I'm just going to kind of try to keep this a little simple. And you can go to your Customized Handbook. And here there's some information about the background. And then on the left I'm clicking on creating. And look, so for visual arts, in grade 1, the pre-K, the anchor standard is generate and conceptualize artistic ideas and work. And in pre-K, that could look like engage in self-directed play with materials. So that's what a visual art teacher would have to work with when thinking of their curriculum. And there's these cool little things right here that give you, oh, the word play. What do we mean by the word play? Spontaneous, engaged activities through which children learn to experience, experiment, discover, and create. Lots of great verbs in there to really help a teacher think about what they're bringing to the classroom. So, so this is just a very quick snapshot of what the handbook offers on this website. Down at the very bottom, I know a lot of parents are very interested in inclusion, and what about special ed students? Well, the National Core Art Standards also worked with very special arts and identified guiding principles for inclusion with these art standards. So that's really terrific, and it's all right here for teachers to access on the website. Resources, another question that often comes up, maybe not so much with parents, but definitely by administrators, is, well, how does this connect to the Common Core, right? So College Board here did a study on arts and Common Core and deliberately tried to find where those crossovers happen so that it's being reinforced in the school all the time. And then you can see here there's numerous other studies that were influencing the drafting of these National Core Art Standards. So I am going to step us back out of here to get us back into our PowerPoint. Great. And right off the bat, you can see there's something different, right, between the 1998 stuff that we're using now and these new 2014 national standards. So what we had to do in Connecticut was put together an initial application process for teachers and educators to participate on review committees to ensure that we got a diverse representation of perspectives. So from 127 applications, 59 reviewers were invited to serve on one of the 5 discipline-specific review teams: dance, music, theater, visual art, and I mentioned the new art form, media arts. And we had, again, a range from across all 8 counties, which is why you see our map here. We had veteran teachers, early career teachers, retired teachers, administrators, higher education folks, and arts organizations. And additionally, they brought a broad knowledge. Some knew nothing about NCAS, and some of them had served on some of the committees. So we had a really good starting place. Reviewers in the beginning, were asked to compare NCAS and the Connecticut 98 standards at the highest level, and they did this by a take-home survey. We started with having them look at the 1998 content standards and the NCAS anchor standards. Now, before I mentioned to you guys that there were 11 anchor standards across art forms, like that one that I said, generate and conceptualize artistic ideas and work, that's standard 1. For both dance and music in the NCAS. But before, in 98, music had their own content standards, they called them, and there were 9 of them. And dance had 7, and visual art had 6. And they weren't always crossing over, and I mean, they did, but it wasn't sort of thoughtfully presented as the arts in an overarching way. It was more like each individual discipline. So we were trying to find the best way to compare the old with the new. So all of the groups were asked to look at those 11 anchor standards and see, does the content standard from 1998 in the discipline you're looking at live somewhere in one of those new standards? And what we found out was that all of the content standards from our old standards did appear somewhere in the new 11 NCAS. Some connections were more explicit and some were more implicit. So the data from our take-home step 1 revealed that our 98 standards are skills-driven and our NCAS are concept-driven, which aligns with a trend across disciplines in the education field. The contemporary national standards are driven by concepts with skills embedded, seeking an integration of skills and concepts for the 2016 learner. So in addition to looking at the content of the standards, reviewers were also asked to respond to the format of the online NCAS platform, because before what they were working with was a PDF document that they could print out and was probably about 30 pages total. They were asked to rate how useful each of these online components would be for them. And the percentages you're seeing here are the number of respondents that found each area very useful about this format of NCAS. Basically, this was telling us that it was a useful tool to have it online, and it's not something that we knew. We knew Connecticut was not going to be able to develop an online tool as robust as this, so we really wanted to take a true look at it and see if teachers would find it helpful. After step 1, teams came together by discipline for a full-day meeting, and they took a deeper dive into crosswalking the standards. In teams, they completed another survey looking at how the performance standards. Now, I don't know if you remember, a few minutes ago I pulled up the pre-K standards in visual art and that word play was in there. That's a performance standard, right? What does it look like at pre-K level? How are the kids performing at that level to generate and conceptualize artistic ideas and work? So they started to look at performance standard against performance standard with our new and old standards. All of the art forms had more than one team reviewing all of the anchor standards to ensure we were getting a cross-perspective response. As part of the survey, each team had to answer the question, what can NCAS do for Connecticut at the performance standard level? And here are the reported top answers. We were particularly excited about the very first bullet point because one of the directives from the State Department of Education is the purpose of having standards is to support districts in creating, writing, and developing, implementing curriculum. So as the crosswalk work continued, both in survey and in discussion, it became clear that there were some instructional shifts to be aware of if we were going to move on adopting NCAS. First, strong, open-ended thinking was required. We're going now from the how of making something to the why are we making something. And that was a big shift for a lot of teachers, and they were not quite sure how to put the two together. We found there was a renewed focus on creativity, innovation, excellence, investigation, risk-taking, that there's a student-centered approach to these standards, and that we noticed also a nice sharing across time and cultures. And there seemed to be an awareness of the social-emotional learning that takes place in arts education that we didn't quite see as explicitly in the 98 standards. Overall, we thought these shifts aligned with the new landscape of 21st century skills, depth of knowledge, inquiry-based thinking, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity because of that to support teachers with these new standards through professional development across disciplines. So as we look to what needs to be addressed in Connecticut to use the NCAS, two big areas continue to surface. One is the need for making the importance of skill building in the arts in order to get to the high-level imperative. Some teachers were saying, wow, I'm looking at these standards and I don't see anywhere make a paper airplane. But there is a higher-level conceptual standard that requires the kid to learn how to make a paper airplane in order to reach that conceptual standard. So that's sort of one of the things we wanted to make sure that we clearly articulate both to teachers and administrators in schools and parents as well as they're working with these. And the other is that these are very dense and full standards. And as we think about the other disciplines, Common Core, math and literacy, science and social studies, the more recent set that came out nationally were all much richer and fuller than previous standards and did require support after adoption, which we're very aware of in this case as well. So we recorded many of the conversations that the review teams had, and I just want to share two quick quotes with you that happened in the room. The first is, we need to think about the 2016 student, the 2026 student, not the 2016 student. And this came out of the conversation about adopting our fifth art form, media arts. There are now majors at most of our universities across the country. There's a digital humanities major at UConn. There is a media design major at a major university down in Florida. So they can actually pursue a major in this art form. So we need to now help them understand what that art form is. The other quote that really stood out, do I agree we need to figure out implementation and teaching? Absolutely. Having standards is a start, a way to start in the right way. This is very powerful when the teachers and the reviewers in the room were really getting bogged down and thinking about, well, what is this going to look like in the classroom teaching? And there were some folks that said, well, we could talk all day about that. In fact, districts should. And that's exciting that these standards bring that out in your conversation. But we need to move forward. So let's see, do we agree that these are the things that we want our young people to learn? Pair teams, in the end, from the review teams, were asked if they liked the content of NCAS. Each pair, so they had to answer in a pair, either yes or no. They could not answer one, both. This chart shows their overall responses. Additionally, during the discussion portion of the review team meetings, music, theater, and media arts voted to adopt NCAS and take advantage of the online platform. Dance and visual art had some concerns with the adoption that had been surfaced in the crosswalk process. Then as the discussion continued, dance, music, theater, and media arts all agreed that a unified set of standards across art forms was most important in considering next steps, and that most other considerations actually could be addressed in some supporting documents, in what we now have identified as our position statement on the implementation of the Connecticut Arts Standards. They were interested in influencing external perception so that all the arts are empowered with a unified voice. From our data, we see a strong interest in adopting the NCAS. However, it is clear that Connecticut needs certain parts addressed explicitly to support our work. So to that end, we are recommending that Connecticut adopt the National Core Art Standards in its online platform with our accompanying Connecticut position statement on the implementation of the art standards. I brought this slide out for you because this is a section in the position statement that directly speaks to parents and community members. Please feel free to visit the Connecticut State Department of Education website at the posted address to read the full document and email me your thoughts. But these are the 3 bullets that come out specifically in the responsibilities of family members and community members to support these art standards. So finally, it's an opportunity for you to ask questions, and I know that Jennifer is there waiting to take your questions by chat or by email. And Jennifer, I'd love for you to tell me if anything's coming up out there.
Yeah, great. Thank you. That was awesome. So one of the first questions that came up from viewers was, when do you anticipate the new standards being put into effect, or when will the schools be using them?
Excellent. Well, right now we are here at the State Department of Education. We are on the agenda for the September board meeting to present the art standards and the recommendations to the full Board of Education. So our hope is that we will have the board vote this fall and that they will be adopted. That said, you know, things can always change with the Board of Ed as issues come up, so that may be fluid. In the meantime, though, there have been some districts that have approached me and said, you know, we're working on our curriculum this summer, we're updating it, what do we do? And I've actually advised them to go ahead and use the NCAS and take the draft position statement and start to work on their curriculum from that lens, and then send me any feedback. Like if something doesn't make sense or you think we need to add another bullet somewhere in the position statement, it's sort of a great opportunity to try it out. So I would say go ahead and use them now, but know that they are not formally and fully adopted, and I anticipate and hope that they will be by the end of the fall.
Okay, all righty. And I'm also, just a note to everyone on here, I'm putting your email, Jackie, into the chat box so they can directly access that to send you email, and I believe on the presentation there's also a link for your email, so they'll be able to easily send you any questions. But another question that I'm seeing coming up is, how will parents be able to support the standards?
Well, I think there's a couple different ways. I think it depends on your community and how active, if you have a parent group, if you have a PTA or a council. I think being aware and maybe passing on and educating other parents that we have rigorous art standards, and not only to ask your child's math teacher how they're doing, but to be interested in what their visual art teacher, might have to say about their growth, because our children all have many talents and can learn in many ways. Another area, if it's feasible again in your community, is that I know music programs, performance-based programs often could use some support with funding to bring concerts or performances or plays to the school. And I also know of parent groups that have been willing to bring outside performances or teaching artists into the school to do arts integration-based programming, and for parents to have a knowledge about what, where the line is, and that these arts integration programs it's ideal if they are able to speak about the art standards, right, and that they're connecting to those. So those are a couple thoughts I have about parents supporting them, and I would love to hear from parents how they have supported arts programs for their young people in schools in the past.
Okay. One more question is more of a concern. If the child's school doesn't have dance, but there are dance standards, how would they go about that?
That's an excellent question. Ultimately, I would love to see, especially as the state arts consultant, all 5 of our arts disciplines fully fleshed out, addressed, realized, and mastered by senior year of high school. But realistically, because of time and funding, schools may have a very rich and robust music program and a pretty good visual art program, and maybe some experiences here and there for dance and theater, or maybe they have, all of it because they're an art school. So we do have a broad range in the state, and obviously these standards are really our highest bar. It's what we're shooting for. It's our ideal. So if you don't actually have a formal dance program with a certified dance teacher in your child's school, maybe work on helping the school to bring in an outside teaching artist that works with the standards but might come in and work alongside a classroom teacher to bring some movement into the school or into a classroom, or maybe works with the PE teacher. And actually, in some cases, PE teachers do have units on dance, and so even asking about that could be helpful, and let the PE teachers know that there are actually dance standards. Most of them probably do, but they may not know that there's new ones coming down the pike, and where to find them.
Okay, great. Those are great ideas. So one question that just came up, this is a biggie, how are they even going to help children prepare for college? Because I think that's a big thing I'm noticing with all the parents. They're very concerned. How is this even going to help with college?
The arts are a fantastic way to really learn those 21st century skills. Collaboration, communication, critical thinking, creativity. If a parent is particularly interested in their child getting involved in a STEM field, let me tell you, you can't have STEM without innovation and creativity, right? So it prepares them in that way. It prepares them to be able to have global conversations, to be able to have intra and interpersonal connections to people, because the arts innately do that.
Right. Alrighty. So we're almost out of time, but one last question that a lot of people are wondering is how will the state help schools and teachers use the standards with the current budget crisis?
That is a very good question, and I would love us to be in a different fiscal time with more budget available to support the rollout, but we're going to be creative and do what we can, because you don't stop, you don't not move forward on standards because we have to limit or be creative in how we deliver the professional development. We still deserve to hold those high standards up there. I do know that the state is working closely with each of the RESCs, which is the Regional Education Service Centers, and there's 6 of them across the state, to develop, they're actually already in place, these arts learning councils made up of teachers, and they're trying to do some grassroots professional development amongst themselves. I know a lot of the professional associations, like the Music Educators Association, the Art Educators Association, the Dance Alliance, and the Theater Group, they are all very willing and open to have me and other folks come and do presentations at their conferences and their professional development sessions. So, and we intend to do more webinars, so you'll probably see more and more of this kind of way of communicating and sharing ideas in the future.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that is it for the questions that we had, and I believe you have one last thing.
I do, actually. I want us to end with some more lovely performing. So I am going to pull up, again, for some reason, I'm a little anticlimactic here. Well, okay, it doesn't, let me go through it another way. There we go. So this is, oops, I went one too far. This is the other performance that happened at the superintendent's meeting, and just take a few minutes to enjoy the Morse Academy Chorale. They're out of New Haven. They're 4th graders through 12th graders, and Yale University has a deep partnership with New Haven Public Schools.
great. Yeah.
Thank you for indulging. I hope you noticed those tapping feet there by the audience. So here's my contact information that Jennifer mentioned earlier. I am available. I know we are at time, a moment or two over. I appreciate you guys joining us today. Please do feel free to email me or call me. I am available to come speak to parent groups anywhere across the state of Connecticut, and I look forward to our continued dialogue as we see what happens with the new Connecticut Art Standards.
Alrighty, thank you everyone for participating today. Again, those important links are in the chat, so you guys can directly access everything that you need, and we are going to end it today. Thank you so much for participating.
You're going to turn the recording off?